Should have had that music playing.
Where'd you find the cornets?
Hello, everyone. I am Estela Mata, and we are here on People with Empathy. Welcome, everyone. Today is a special session that we're going to be having. Wonderful conversation about confronting the pain and also talking about what our purpose is and beyond our purpose and what we have lived through. And we have the amazing my friend, Jocyline Von Raesfeld, who is going to be sharing from her perspective how she has been living with so many conditions since a young age. And also we have two special guests who are going to be also sharing their perspective. And, you know, today's session is going to be about a conversation that maybe, you know, you all will have at one point in your lives with your loved ones. If you live with a chronic condition, we know that it impacts not just us living with the conditions, but our loved ones and family members as well. So today's conversation is going to bring and spark maybe a lot of questions and desires to have these discussions at home with your loved ones. So please make sure you put in your comments where you're tuning in from and ask any questions. And this is an interactive session that we are going to be having. So it's a family discussion. So sorry if we have a little bit of background noise, but Christine, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, and welcome everyone. So a lot of you know me from my advocacy work, and really I think you don't know me for the other side and what I've been through as, you know, I've been growing up. And so I really wanted to have a conversation with my parents because it has been a really long and difficult road. And I'm sure my parents will tell you at some point during this broadcast how difficult everything was. But really just kind of to give everyone an inside look. We've all been through the same experience with me being sick. And yet my mother and my father both have completely different stories and different journeys of their own. And for those that don't know, I'll introduce them in a second, but my mom right there, she's actually from the Philippines. My dad is from here, from Silicon Valley. And so they had gone through their own struggles that I didn't realize as a kid. And now that I've gotten further into advocacy, I see different sides of the entire issue. And so now really do have a different viewpoint and a different perspective on illness, but not just from my own, but from that as you know, from my parents' point of view. So Mom, Dad, do you want to take a quick second to introduce yourself? Quick, Dad.
I'm her dad, Don Von Raesfeld Jr. Grew up my whole life in the Silicon Valley, and we're now in Anthem, Arizona. My wife, Jocyline.
Yeah, I'm Jocyline Von Raesfeld. We've been married for the longest time. And we're still here. Years. And we've been going through this journey with Christine. And we just want to share it with you guys.
And we're together because it's cheaper to keep her.
Oh my God.
Okay, that's my parents, and this is how they always are. So we're gonna now move into our.
Are Maggie and Layla gonna watch this?
Stop.
I'm not sure. So
For the Gumma and Papa show.
Okay, so Estela is gonna conduct an interview now, Dad.
Yes. No, but you know what? I love this. I love this interaction because, you know, this is what it's about. It's about family. It's about sometimes, you know, laughing and then just enjoying each other's company. So I love that, you know, we're going to have a couple of laughs here, maybe some tears, but you know what? Everything is welcome. So, and hopefully, yeah, your nieces and your granddaughters are tuning in, you know, and I know that with Christine's journey, it's been a long journey and, you know, since she was young, and I know you each had a very distinct roles in the care of your children. You know, Christine is one of, you know, several children that you have. So as the breadwinner or caretaker, what were the biggest obstacles you faced? And we'll start with you, Dawn, and let us know, and then we can move over to Miss Jocyline.
Well, I think she was about 15 when she first started getting real sick. Um, and luckily, we had insurance. Up until that point, we hadn't. I was managing a hardware store for my dad and working a lot. And then with 5 kids, I realized we needed some insurance. So I started driving for Santa Clara County Transit District part-time and working full-time for dad. So Jocelyn was the one in the beginning that really took the brunt. I was always working, but it was hard to see her that way. So.
And Dad, I had, as I was growing up, I had a lot of, I think issues. And I had a conversation with my dad at one point where I asked him why he wasn't there. I had found some old medical records, was looking through some things, and I got angry, and I thought, where were you? And really didn't realize how much, as a parent, somebody would have to work to make sure that I even had that care. And so I know that there are a lot of fathers out there who aren't really involved in that part, who, who kind of regret that and see parts that, they can't control. Mom, what about you?
Yeah. So I was the caretaker since you were smaller, and I told you before, like your grandma was real sick, and she was telling me, Christine, Christine is there's something wrong with Christine, and you have to take her to the hospital. And I told everybody, well, it's just like the flu. I'll do that because she has to. She was sick all the time, so I took her to her appointments, and the doctor was just saying they were dismissive, and they were saying, "Oh, she's just sick. She's growing up. That's growing up pains and all this other stuff." And when you were in that position, you always say, he's a doctor. He knows what he's talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. I haven't gone through this because I was a young mother who had all these kids that I had to take care of. And she had more, I had to do more care for her because she was the real sick person in our family. But you learn from your mistakes, you learn from everything, and then you base all your experiences on what you've gone through. So you're not like a Lily that, I mean, you can't be not questioning things. You question everything. And then that's how I get to be myself. And that's it.
Thank you, Dawn and Jocelyn, for, bringing in your perspective. I know it's difficult at times, to have to juggle so many things. Dawn, in your case, having to be the breadwinner, having to take care of your family, doing what you can to provide financially, make sure there's a roof over their top, a top of their heads and food on the table. And it's hard to be able to do many, many things and many roles. So sometimes feeling like guilty for not doing everything is okay. It's okay to have feelings, but know and understand that we can't do it all, right? So keeping that in mind. And then Jocyline, I think you made a great point. You were a young mother. You were not originally from here, maybe a language barrier. And all you knew was that you needed to take care of your daughter, as well as your other children. But this daughter of yours needed a little more care, and just the fear, the trying to understand and trying to provide the help that she needed at that time must have been overwhelming. So I truly, truly appreciate your honest and sincere answers. And I know that many parents probably struggle with the same thing. In my family, we have a lot of autoimmune conditions, and we shouldn't blame each other for what we can do or what we cannot do, right? We only have control of certain things, and you did the best with what you had. And that is amazing. That's why Christine is still here, because you guys were there to take care of her. Another question: what was it like to make medical decisions? I know you kind of touched on this, Jocyline, and you said that her grandmother was always sick, and she thought you needed to make sure that she got the care that she needed. But did you understand what was going on with Christine? And even how to make the decisions that you made when you had to make decisions about her care?
When you're in that position,
Kind of doing what the doctors
you
advise.
I know you probably have the doctors that you turn to, right? And you're young, you don't know what to do. You haven't gone. There's no internet that you could go and look at all the stuff that she's been through. You've been through the doctors, and the doctors are just saying it's in her head. Uh, Use this, use that. And what's your position? You have to use all the stuff that they give you. And I think my regret is I didn't ask questions. Like, she was on prednisone for the longest time, and I didn't know what prednisone does for her. And so
I don't think the doctors did either.
no, the doctors knew, but they were saving a life. They were saving her life. And that's the only thing that I don't think all the doctors that we went through are capable of handling her situation, because she has so many things that happen to her, and the doctors, I mean, they just didn't know what to make of it.
And I think that's, it's the unknown, right? The
Yes.
unknown questions that maybe the providers or the doctors did know that prednisone was going to help her at that time, because that was the only thing that could help her. But I think what maybe was not discussed all the time, and this happens a lot, is the side effects, right? So you
Yes.
have like, this is needed, but this may also happen if we treat her with this. So you kind of weigh in, like, what's going to help, and kind of go with, if these side effects are going to hurt her, they're a lot milder than saving her life. So I think, it's pretty scary to not know, but also, for the future, for us to ask the questions as to, if this is going to help her, how, are there any side effects? Is there anything I should be aware of? Any concerns I should have? Because, again, no one has all the answers. But thank you for answering that. And Christine, I just wanted to kind of let you know. So I do have some people that are on.
I just fixed it. We had a little issue there. I think Facebook kicked us off for some reason. So I worked it out and I got us back on. So
yeah. But we have people from Seattle. Hi, Janice. For tuning in.
We've got quite a few people on the LinkedIn site as well. So
yes,
everyone else on
Atune from Dubai. So you have fans and friends from everywhere tuning in. Chelsea, hello, Chelsea. Thank you for tuning in. I love that people are tuning in. If you guys have any questions, if you've gone through something similar, please share it with us. That's why we're doing this, because I know we don't always have these conversations. And maybe it's okay to, have these conversations and share them, because it might help other people realize that they're not alone and they're not the only ones dealing with this. Christine, do you have any feedback in regards to what Dawn and what your dad and your mom have shared this far in regards to treatments and or just the ability to be able to care for you but not be able to do everything.
Yeah. So I'll say this: I had a lot of anger growing up, and a lot of anger even into my 20s and 30s and now. And you and I have discussed this in the past, but when I got into advocacy and I was able to see parents, right, that really went over and above, and I had all of this anger inside of me because I thought, where were mine? And where were they when I was a kid and when I was going through all of this? And I think partly too is my own fault, right? I hid a lot of my own illness. When I was younger, like my mom said, doctors just thought I was making it up. And so at a certain point, I myself kind of hid a lot of the things that were going on and just kind of, didn't focus on those things. And I think it's important that now I talk about it all the time, that when you are feeling something, only you know your body, right? And to fight for those things. And so not having the internet at that time, when I was 14 years old, I was going to Stanford. I was taking the bus to the library. I don't know why my parents let me on the bus with a bleeding disorder, but that's okay. I was there and trying to do things on my own. We didn't have internet. I just aged myself. But there was no internet at that time to go on to look for resources, to find anyone else who had been going through what we're going through. And so I think now having access and having the ability, even as us as a family, to come on is huge, because we've been through our own issues, and having this conversation is hard, especially online publicly with millions of other people. So
Yeah, but it's okay. And this is one thing that I think we say it, and we don't really actually live by it or do it, but it's okay to have these feelings, to be angry, to be frustrated, to feel all these different emotions, because you are going through this grieving process of, your parents lost who you were before you became sick. You were a healthy, beautiful child. You're still their beautiful child. You're just now a little sick, and they're trying to see how they can help you. And in your you going through this, you also went through your grieving process. And I think we don't realize that we have to go through these emotions. You're grieving the loss of who you were and who you are becoming. So anger is one of them, because you are losing something. But the one thing that I can say is everyone goes through these challenges and these in process at a different time in their life. So you being angry does not mean that your parents were bad parents. It just means that those are your emotions and your feelings. Your dad's feeling of being frustrated and not able to control everything and to be a caregiver and also the breadwinner is also okay. So I think we're touching on things that, it's okay to talk about these things. But thank you for sharing, Christine, about that too. But when did you realize how serious the conditions you had at a young age? Did you realize how serious your conditions were, or did you realize this after, you became an adult?
so for me, I'll go first. I always knew something was wrong, and I don't remember a day of my life living without pain, without something happening. And again, like I said, I went through a lot of, as a kid, complaining about things. My dad's family thought I was a hypochondriac. People didn't listen. And so that part of it, I knew something was wrong. I had a surgery. My first surgery was at the age of 5. And it was, my dad never remembered what it was and what the condition was, but it ended up being epiglottitis. and it was a condition that I found out years afterwards, right? But I think even from there, it just, for me, it had always been there. And so now, you know, to tell people and to tell them that you were feeling these things and then to just be dismissed everywhere, right? My mom would tell me when I said my joints hurt, she would say, oh, it's growing pains. Your bones are stretching, right? All of these different things. And we attributed everything I was going through to something else. And so for me, I knew it was serious from the time I was born. For them, I'm not sure when they knew it was serious. So mom, dad.
Yeah, that actually, before you answer, Jocyline, you hit something that a lot of us as parents, because I do have daughters myself, the growing pains, you know, you felt the pain in us as parents. And then I'll let you answer, Jocyline. I many times went to the doctor to take my daughters, and I would say they have a lot of pain, you know, and the doctors would tell me they were growing pains. So all I knew, because you don't know what you don't know, right, were that, oh, it's growing pains. So sometimes it's not a bad thing to think that it is one thing that the doctors tell you it is. And, you know, and I just wanted to say that, because if you did think that, Miss Jocyline, I don't want you to feel guilty about it either. But go ahead, Miss Jocyline, what do you have to share about that?
Okay, when she was growing up, she was always sick. Um, I think it got worse when she was in high school. When she was in high school, she was always in bed. She was always missing classes. And the teachers would call me up and say, hey, Christine missed the thing. Why is she sick? I told them, well, I'll take her to the doctors. The doctors would tell me, oh, it's probably the flu that's going around. That's one of their things. It's the flu because she's under the weather. She didn't want to do anything. And she's always in bed with aches and pains. But this grew for the longest time. I'm always going and taking her to a hospital. And the doctors weren't listening to her. They weren't listening to me. When I tell them, no, she's in pain. And they said, oh, it's in her head. And that was the worst thing, because now if somebody tells somebody, oh, they're growing up, it's the pain. I said, you have to go and really listen to this person. You can't just assume that this person is sick with the flu. It's just a common thing that they want to go and just box you in. And that's not, although she's a special person, I think that they have, I don't know, the doctors should have more training, I think, to go
And I think you hit a good point there too, Miss Jocyline, because I could sense the frustration of, like, you wish you knew what you know today, to, you know, and go back in time. You know, we can't do that. So I hear it in your voice, but it is not, again, your fault. You know, as Janice was saying, she put a comment, you know, pain is so hard for others to understand, depression too. Invisible illnesses are sometimes hard for others to empathize with. And yeah, sometimes the doctors, they have their degrees, you know, we respect their professional opinions, but they don't always know what is wrong with the person. And you know, Christine knew, because she's the one that was feeling it. You knew your daughter was in pain, yet you were not being heard. And I think that's one of the reasons why So many of us, and Christine always advocates for so many, and making sure the patients are being heard, that they do have a seat at the table, because that is one thing that is needed. Dawn, I have that. I have a question. Christine shared right now about the surgery she had and you not knowing. Um, do you think that it's not because you were not, you didn't know she had surgery, but were you afraid sometimes also of knowing what was wrong or what was going on?
Somewhat. The first time I really, well, like Jocelyn always took her to the hospital and everything because I was always working. Um, but the first time I really realized that it was really serious.
It's okay. Thank you. And I think this is one of the things, is because we don't have these conversations all the time. And maybe this, is not ready. We're not ready to discuss this. So what we can do is, acknowledge one thing, acknowledge that it's okay to go through the grieving process right now and start from here on. Dawn, I know, and Christine shared this with me. You knew the surgery, you just didn't remember the name, because you actually told her.
The only one that the first time I really realized it was really serious, though, I guess she was in her early teens and she couldn't swallow. Um, and maybe that was the one. I don't know. Anyway, we ended up taking her to the hospital. It was on a weekend, I guess, and I was home, or it was my day off or whatever. I don't know what it was. So long ago. But we took her to the hospital, and they diagnosed her with some disease that Lou Ferrigno's son had died from. Yeah. And I don't know what it was. She probably still remembers what it was. But when they told us that if we hadn't gotten her in,
if you wouldn't have gotten her in time to have her surgery, she would have died. And that is what, from this conversation, what I gathered is, you knew that it was a condition, and you knew you needed to save her life. So remembering what type of condition was,
doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter. What matters is she is here alive today because you guys took the opportunity to get her the best care. And that is one of the things that I have to say. This is not judgment on any parent, because we don't have all the answers, and I do have to share another thing that Janice just shared is, you as parents have done a great job raising Christine. She's a beautiful lady, and you raised her. Doctors only have the best current evidence at any point in time. And it's true, because this is not about what grade we're getting as parents. This is about sharing the experience that we've had. Sometimes we don't know about these conditions. Sometimes we do. And sometimes we don't know how to act or react or what to do. And it's very scary when you have so many other children to take care of. And then you have a sick child that you don't even know or understand what her conditions are. And all you want is to have your child be healthy. So I do want to commend both of you for the amazing job that you've done, because there is a reason why you guys are sharing your story. You guys are helping so many other parents that are out there that right now may have a child with a condition that might not even have a name. So not knowing the name is not a bad thing. And also feeling that guilt, it's not about the guilt, it's about the care. It's what you can do, and doing what you did, and knowing that you did the best that you could. And I think that's how we need to sum it up. You did the best that you could with what you had, whether it was the information or the access to care. But thank you
Estela,
again.
I want to say, I think it's important for other parents to know, right, that other parents feel this way too. And my dad, for a long time, thought that I hated him, and I never did, right?
Well,
maybe sometimes.
You didn't talk to me since you were about 13 until 22.
But I do have to say too, my dad was one that always, was there for me. And when I was on steroids, we all know how people get on steroids. And I would tell my mom when I was on high doses, don't let dad come near me. But I think as a person who deals with an illness, you take out a lot on the people that you think can handle it. And I think with my dad, I knew that no matter what I did or said, right, he was still gonna be there. And so it wasn't anger at you, but it was anger at the situation and my life and just different things that kind of just manifested to that. But I think it is that, you take things out on the people that you love the most. And so I never hated you and you know that, but I think it's important for other parents to know as their kids have anger issues with them, because I've heard other parents say the same thing. So
yes. And these emotions sometimes are triggered by your circumstance, your situation, but I think they're also triggered by the drugs that you are taking. And now that we know a little bit more, Dawn, I could say that we've heard, we do support groups, and we had a family, and we had a couple that had been married for over 30 something years, and the wife had been starting a treatment that was helping her. And she came in and she said, my husband wants a divorce, literally within the month that she started taking the treatment. And, we didn't know how to help, because you can't help those situations. Well, she went and they had a conversation with the provider, and they said, oh my goodness, those are a lot of the side effects of the medication. So the husband found out, they had this conversation. They're still together, celebrating 30 something, almost 40 years together. So I share that to say that sometimes we don't realize that a lot of these treatments change the mood that we are going through, change the way we are going to react or act. So not to say that there weren't feelings of anger, but just acknowledge that a lot of feelings are triggered with the treatments. And I think that's another thing that we need to learn, is to be okay with asking these questions. And yeah, sometimes we heard the ones that we love the most. But you know what? Like, the one thing that I can tell you is, I don't think Christine hated you. I think she was just angry. And, sometimes we go through these phases and, going through hormones and adulthood, not to justify her actions. But I myself had a phase with my dad. We didn't talk. But I was his favorite daughter. So I just have to share that. So maybe Christine is your favorite daughter. No, and if your other daughter is tuning in, we're just kidding. But so those
they
are
were
just
all
little
replaced by
things.
Niner.
Oh.
my dad has a dog, for people that don't know, that is my brother, apparently. So.
And I met Niner, and let me say, I think he has been so supportive, Niner and your dad, and I think that was a way of also your dad introducing someone, or his way of helping you out, because I've heard stories of how Niner was a lupus advocate, when you were first diagnosed with lupus, and how they were all active in the community. So those are things that we sometimes we don't share our emotions the way that others would think that or expect us to. So I do have more questions. Are you guys ready for more questions? Yeah. With other children at home, how did Christine's illness affect the family dynamic? And so whichever one of you want to answer first, Jocyline or Dawn.
That would probably be Jocelyn to answer because she was home all the time. I was always at the store driving.
It was hard. It was hard having all those kids and taking care of Christine. And Christine was not the only sick person in our family. We had, I should say, three
Three
more,
out of the five really
yeah,
had condition
that
had different
really
conditions.
that are sick. It's not as bad as what Christine was experiencing, but it's like autoimmune diseases. So it's hard to go. You're the mom. You have to divide your time between all these kids. You don't have that much time. I mean, she took most of the time that I have. So I was just so glad that my mom, their grandmother, was there to take care of the kids
Yeah, that she helped a lot.
because she helped a lot. They went to her for vacations and all this other stuff. So I think that's the good thing because you have some like a vacation from taking care from being a caretaker. So
Yeah,
you can't be a caretaker all the time because it'll just mess up your mind.
yeah, and Jocelyn, I do, you know, as you were speaking, I was trying to figure out, kind of putting myself in your shoes. You have 5 children.
Yes.
You have all 5 children are sick, different conditions. Christine probably was the most critical, right? Because she had to
Yeah.
go through surgeries, hospitalizations, the school's calling you, all of this stuff. Um, it, and your mom helped you. I could just imagine how hard and difficult it was for you as a young mother, having sick children, having to take care of them, and the toll it took on you. And maybe back then, and even now, sometimes we forget to ask those caregivers, those caretakers, the moms that are right there, with the children, how are you doing? And if you could give advice to other parents, what advice would you give them on, juggling all of it?
I think it's you have to ask for help. You have to go and say, I have these things that are happening to me. I need help with my kids and all this other stuff. Because some of his sisters offered to babysit the kids when I was taking Christine to the hospital and stuff like that. So just ask for help because they are going to help you. And if you don't have any relatives around you, you should ask for help from organizations that are helping families and all this other stuff. I see all these things, not just lupus, but for cancer and all this stuff that they are helping the families. So ask for help. That's my first thing. And also punish Christine. She
I
took
love
all
that.
my time.
But I turned out great. So see what we're fighting about.
Yeah.
I want to say though, Estela, really quick too, when we look at the family dynamic, my brothers and sisters, when I got sick, it was at a time where hospitals didn't allow visitors under 13 years old, right? And so a lot of these issues were not right there in front of my brothers and sisters' faces. And so they didn't see that true reality of what I was dealing with because they weren't allowed, and then I think also, I don't know, but they didn't talk a lot about a lot of these issues, right, with my brothers and sisters. And we didn't do family therapy. And, I think those are things that anyone that has a child now, there is those resources available, and not to forget those brothers and sisters. I have a strained relationship with a few of mine, and I think honestly they just didn't understand. So
It's so great that you guys are talking about this, because I know, one of the things that my sisters and I did at the beginning when we were helping children from Children's Hospital, that have with rheumatic illnesses and conditions, we would go and help and support the siblings of the children that had these conditions. And I think a lot of times we don't talk about, what the siblings are going through. Maybe they were concerned too. Maybe they were scared of losing their sister. Maybe they were also feeling, left out. Or maybe they blamed themselves for, taking a little bit of your time when they could be, you could be taking care of their sick sister. You never know what was in their little brains at that time, because we all go through these different emotions and we don't all talk about it. So I'm glad that we're bringing it up, because siblings do also get impacted by this, and it's not just jealousy. It could also be the fact that they're worried about and love their sibling. But since we're talking about family and asking for help, when did you guys decide to tell people about Christine's conditions, or any of your children's conditions? Was it different to talk about your other children's conditions versus Christine's? And when did you decide to talk about it with your family members? And Dawn, I'll ask you first, because you have been quiet a little bit. When did you decide to tell the family?
Well, I talked to my mom and dad. That was about it. Didn't really talk to my brothers and sisters about it. And at work, I didn't talk to my friends about it until she started doing the lupus advocacy stuff. And some of them would join us on the walks and stuff. Yeah, it was really just my mom and dad that I talked to about it. And mom was more understanding than dad, but dad was like me. He was always working. And that was basically the same thing. I've got 5 sisters and 3 brothers, and dad was always busy, always working. And so it was mom that really, like Jocyline, took care of all of the kids. So.
Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah, it must be hard, to also kind of relive all of this. So I understand how hard this could be. Jocyline, for you, I know you brought up that you've talked to Christine's, grandmother and your mom about this. But did you talk to any of your other family members about their conditions?
I have a big mouth. I ask people. I have, since we're in the Filipino family, they volunteer what they have. Like my cousin had cancer and all this other stuff. That was before they were smaller, but my grandmother was sick and all this other stuff, and so I tell all of them that Christine was sick, but I really didn't know what she was sick with. There's no diagnosis that is specific for her. So I'm always saying, well, she's sick. I think that's kind of generalizing what she had, because she was sick. That's it. She didn't have a specific disease that they could see. So I don't think they related that to that point that she's like really, really sick.
Yeah. And I think even now, she looks healthy. She looks beautiful. She does. You could not, tell that she's going through everything, all these autoimmune conditions, central nervous system issues, heart issues. I mean, you name it. And I even forget myself because we were spending so much time together. I forget, like, oh my gosh, like she has this or has that, but I think that's the beauty of it, is the fact that we are not defined by these conditions. We are not defined by this. And, the fact that you shared, she's sick and you truly didn't know. And until right now, I think still, Christine, you don't know everything that you have. There are still the unknowns, right? Yeah. But Christine, do you want to share anything or add on to whatever your parents have said so far?
Just a little bit. I want to say that, I had two very different families. My dad's family is your typical white American family, and my mom has a Filipino, very want to be in your business and in your space kind of family, right? And so to have that two kind of competing cultures, I think, is also difficult. I would go to my mom's house and they would bring people in to pray over me, and they would be doing things, and the other side is more distant. And so I think even just your culture really plays into how you deal with a diagnosis. And so I'm glad that my mom's family was around to really kind of step in some of those other moments. My dad's family, a lot of them are really supportive now. My godmother, Dolores, is always amazing, but it's been after I've grown up and now as an adult that we can have these conversations, but not before, So I think culture plays a lot into these things too.
Yes. Just like when we're looking at our DNA, right, Christine, and yours looks like you're literally half, Philippine, 50% Filipino, 50% white, also our cultures, everything that we bring on from our families, it's very, very different the way we are raised and the way we grow up. And I could just imagine, the difference. And then you're the child, you're like, oh no, like here I'm getting all this attention, here I don't get attention, like either leave me alone or, or take care of me. But I know your relationship hasn't always been great. You guys mentioned those couple of years, but overall, I mean, Christine, your relationship with your parents is it good now? Dawn, Jocyline, what do you guys say? Is it a good relationship?
I'm gonna let them answer first. Let's see what they say.
How is the relationship with Christine? Has it evolved, Dawn?
It's become a lot better. Except when she asks for money. But
that's a whole nother issue that needs to be discussed, but that's not
that's another one. That's
yeah.
But no, after up until the age of 22, she was pretty much we'll say angry instead of hateful. But I mean, she had a job. Well, she had a couple of different jobs, and she would blow them off. And I would tell her, you can't do that. And then she'd get mad at me and basically tell me to go to hell. But then when she turned 22, she really surprised me because it was right near Father's Day. And she asked me what I wanted for Father's Day. And I had just gotten this catalog in the mail with, I'm into aviation. And it had these different models signed by the pilots. And one of them that I liked a lot because I met the guy and I'd seen him fly a lot was Bob Hoover. And he had a model of a Shrike Commander. And I just, as a joke, I said, yeah, I want this. And it was $285. And Father's Day came and she gave me a card saying that she ordered the model, but that it was in his office in Los Angeles and they wouldn't be sent out until November after he finished the air show season. And then it did come then, but that was basically the turning point where she actually became an adult and realized.
Still not an adult.
Well, you were more than a little.
You were
toddler.
talking, you were talking to your dad.
You were talking to me again, and we were able to have some conversations and not get out of my life.
Or stop talking to me.
Yeah, leave me alone.
That is such an amazing story, because the love was always there.
Yeah.
It was just it wasn't just she had to take her time to be able to show you. So I love that you shared that. Jocyline, what about for you, the relationship with Christine?
Christine, I think Christine made me what I am right now. And I'm so forever grateful for her because she made me stand up to people. I don't take anything for granted. I ask people, I ask my doctor. So there, I really love her. And I don't think she knows. We never say I love her, but I always express it because I'm always there in the room with her. There's the doctor's there, but I'm there asking questions for her. So she made me what I am.
Oh my gosh, I had to hold back my tears, and I'm sorry because I was supposed to hold it together here. But our culture, we don't always know how to share because we weren't taught, right? I know in my family, my mom never told me she loved me, but I knew with the actions. And right now, what you're saying is, all the actions and everything that you did was love. Don working was love. The love that he had for his family. You being there at the doctor's office and caring for your children was love. All of this is love, and we don't always say it enough. We weren't taught to say it enough. And that's one of the things that I know that I wanted to change with my daughters, to say I love you, to hug them and show that affection. And sometimes we don't realize how much it's needed. I didn't really get that either from my parents, but I know that they loved me. I didn't get hugs that much. I didn't get the I love yous, but I knew with the actions that they loved me. And Christine, I want you to share what you just heard from your parents. And I think love is really one of the things that I take from this whole conversation that we've had today. The love and the love that you guys have for each other and everything you guys have done. So share with me, Christine, from your perspective, your relationship with your parents.
So it was always, kind of hard, right, when I was younger. And I didn't realize the things they were going through. I only, when you're in that disease state, you only think about yourself, and so I always thought too, like, they're not showing me this, and so they don't love me. And I used to tell people, oh, my dad only kisses me on the forehead when I'm in the hospital and I'm dying. And I know it's serious because my dad will kiss me on the forehead. And I think now, after being in advocacy for so long and after seeing other people, I realized they do love me. They did the entire time. And now it's a matter of me trying to, I guess, make up for a lot of that, right? To kind of now be in a place where they know that I know the struggles that they went through, and I don't totally understand them, right? I didn't have kids. But I know it was hard. And I'm just thankful that they tried so hard, right? We had multiple times where people were telling them that I was not going to survive. And I can't imagine as a parent to sit there and think that you have to say goodbye, and so now being able to see all that and to, and to hear my mom say that was nice. I don't want to cry too much, so I'm going to stop. You're on mute, Estela.
I said crying is okay. Having these feelings it's definitely okay, because it's okay to not be okay sometimes, right? But, again, I think these conversations are sometimes needed. I think our conversation here today, confronting the pain, right, that you guys had to go through, to now kind of looking at the silver lining is really love and, you know, perseverance, and just continuing to not giving up with, trying to search for answers for Christine to continue to be here advocating for others and empowering them to not give up. You, Don, for continuing to support your daughter, and loving her, unconditionally, because whether you say it or not, I think your actions, whether you're supporting her, emotionally, financially, however it is, it's all love. And I think it's just amazing. And I hope that this discussion sparks so many other conversations with other people that perhaps have not had these conversations with their loved ones, with their caregivers, with their parents. And it's always good to look at different perspectives. We don't know how the other person is feeling if we don't ask. And I know right now, with the questions that I asked, they were a little invasive, but I got to know that one thing that you guys all share is that love. And I'm glad that I got to meet you guys, and before you guys moved to Arizona. And I'm glad that Christine's my friend, and I just love that you guys are having these conversations that are going to help so many other people. So
and
thank
we
you.
are almost out of time. We're hitting our mark, but I think we had one last question. Do you want to ask that one, Estela?
The last question is, for any parents who are going through these struggles right now, what is your advice? Dawn, let's start with you.
Well, patience. I know I did a lot of praying, still do. That's probably it on my part. But I'm not sure about Jocyline.
There's a lot of work that entails giving care to a sick child. And there's, whether you're not appreciated or they think that you don't do things that they want, it's just in their mind. Because you're showing them your love, you're showing them that you care. You're there when they're sick, you're there when they're happy. Just go through all this stuff with your kids. Give them a hug, give them a kiss, tell them that you love them. I think that's the best thing that I could give.
Thank you. Christine, for you, what advice do you give those young kids that are going through something, those young adults, or even, us adults, that are living with conditions? What advice do you give?
I think that no matter how dark things get, that there is always a light somewhere, and that what you think people may be doing that is against you are oftentimes there to help you. And so I think for any kid who's struggling with the condition, right, to know that, they may be overbearing and it may be difficult, but they're there because they do care, and that things get better, right? And I think one of the other things is really to look at their situation and understand where they're also coming from, because it does get very easy, right, to get sucked into your own world and to have to realize what other people are going through to make you still be there and function and all of that. Just kind of realizing that.
Wow, gosh, it's 6 o'clock. We finished a whole hour. We had some tears. We had, a couple of laughs. But most importantly, we shared your struggles, right? And sometimes it is hard, and I love that, at the end of the day, there is a purpose for this whole story. One thing my sister always says is, I'm not happy that I have my condition or that I was diagnosed with a condition, but I'm happy that I've met so many amazing people along the way and I have had so many experiences. And even though we don't wish an illness, a chronic condition on anyone, or, failed relationships or broken relationships, healed relationships with anyone, but we do want, everyone to feel that there is a safe space for everyone out there to be able to share their perspective. And the fact that you guys are sharing yours here, I think is amazing. Any final?
They're still married for this many years. They were able to survive an illness and a monster child. So I think that deserves kudos too. Is
5 monster children
and one real good dog.
We had 2 good dogs.
I love it. And and it's so you can't compete with Niner, Christine.
No.
The one thing she didn't mention was that when she was at Kaiser and first diagnosed with the lupus, she had a doctor that was really good, and she outlasted the doctor. The doctor retired on her.
You see, so you were involved in her care, and you were, even though you were not actively always taking her because you couldn't. So I love that you shared that, because I think you were more involved than what you claim to be, Dawn. So that's it. I think that's it. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. I could go in if you guys have a couple of minutes, and should we go through a couple of the people that made comments, Christine, to see if there's any questions?
Sure, why not? We'll do it for a couple more minutes.
So look, we have love from Chicago, right? We have here a couple. Do you want to go through them, Christine?
Sure. So we've got Emmy. Emmy she knows my dad. She said thanks for sharing. So thank you all for tuning in. My ex-boyfriend is up here and he says, yes, those steroids were no joke.
It's confirmed. It was all the drugs.
It's the people you hear about the most, right? Let me see. Whitney says trauma, including life-changing diagnosis, make you act out. I think we might have put that up there, but Whitney, that was definitely something we needed to all hear. I love the dog business card.
So do I.
A lot of people know I'm in Arizona now too.
And so Chelsea also thinks that at that age, it's so common with adolescents, and especially with chronic illness on top of that. I think, those of us who grew up as teenagers dealing with things have a very different outlook on some of those things. Janice, she says, you have to recognize what you both sacrificed for the safety, health, and wellness of your children. Sometimes we as children do not recognize all our parents sacrificed for us. Wisdom and appreciation comes with age. And that Chelsea agreed with and says very true. Madi, she's just saying hello to the parents. And Mark, hi Mark, he says he respects all of us for having this conversation. It's not an easy dialogue. And my friend Julie sends her hearts. And we've got a lot of thank yous then here. And we've got Jason that says, sharing is a form of caring for people, no matter the relationship. And I don't know, did I skip through any of them? I think we got them because we had Janice with her comment about my parents. And
she says, Madi says, my mom always says I love you, but my dad doesn't, but he'll show it by doing things. Yep. And you have so many hearts, and I think, again, these conversations is really, we should have them more often than. I'm so glad that you wanted it, that you felt that it was time for you to share this, Christine, and that we had your parents and they were, okay to share this. And again, I know it's difficult to rehash and go through everything, but know that, people are out there. They are tuning in and they're listening. And look at this. Thank you for sharing your stories. A lot of thank yous. So I love that we got so many people. People are still tuned in. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Christine, for sharing your story. Thank you, Don and Jocyline. And I know Niner's out there somewhere too.
Yeah, he's laying down on his bed.
All righty. Well, thank you.
All right. And we'll see you next time. So I'll end it now.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.